Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. How are you, Vivienne?
Very good. Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to talk about Google Discover.
Yes, so for the audience, we did this talk live at SMX Munich about 2 months ago. And today we are recording this as a webinar to share it with everybody. So the topic today is how to perform the perfect Google Discover audit. The speakers, so Vivienne.
So hi, my name is Vivienne. I work as an editorial lead SEO at BILD, which means my main focus is on trying to convince journalists to do more SEO, and I'm responsible for the editorial SEO strategy, meaning deciding on whether we focus more on Discover or search or Google News, like what's the most important part.
Yes, thank you, Vivienne. And on my part, so I work at Oncrawl. I'm a technical SEO, and basically I'm part of the customer success team. So my job is to help our users better use the platform. And lately I've been working a lot on finding the best way to perform a Google Discover audit. And that's our topic today. And we did this work with Vivienne, and we are going to share the best practice today. So let's start with the menu. So quick introduction, we'll discuss the setup phase, which is important, and then go into the audit, the different questions we want to ask, and a couple more thoughts with the last point, so going further than this audit. Introduction.
So what is Google Discover actually, and how does it work? For me, the most interesting part about Google Discover is that it is more like social media than it is actually like Google search. We can see it here on the Google search screenshot. You see the normal usual Google search that you enter a keyword, you get a result, and it serves an existing query that you have, like you want to know something and you get the information for that query that you enter. On Google Discover, it works more like a social feed. So you scroll through it, and whatever picture or headline piques your interest, you click on. It is highly personalized. So no two people get the same Google Discover feed. You can disable the personalization if you want to, but usually if you do not go to the settings, Google will remember what you clicked on and show you more of what you seem to be interested in. Very important to know is that Google Discover only exists on smartphones and tablets. There is no desktop Discover version. It exists roughly since 2018, and the articles that are in Discover are more like a magazine than really the daily news, where else in Google with the news box you often find rather daily news.
And so why should we target Discover as SEOs?
Well, I've heard different stories from like one article making between 10K and 3 million visits in a single day just from a hit in Google Discover. So that's a huge potential. Like some websites don't even make that in a month. So if you get a Google hit in Discover, it can bring you a lot of traffic in a short amount of time. So yeah, publishers make on average like a certain amount of traffic every single day, with single articles reaching really high numbers.
Okay, so lots of traffic. And what about the content then? What is showing up in Google Discover?
So if we look at the user needs, you probably heard or seen them before. We see less of the usual, update me, let me know what's important today, articles, not so much the help me content, like everything that gives you tips on a daily basis. It shows up a little bit, but not a lot. Mainly what shows up in Discover are articles that are inspiring, that you want to divert yourself from like the daily knowledge or the daily doing, like give me some perspective maybe on a topic. Comments we see often in Discover. So yeah, it's more not what do I need to do, everything I need to know today, but it's more like I do have a bit of time to scroll and read. So, show me something that's interesting.
Yes. So now the next question is, why should we perform a Google Discover audit?
Well, it is a black box. So Google doesn't really say like how to rank in Discover, how to get articles in Discover. So the only way of figuring out what works for Google Discover is to actually look at your own data. That's your only chance to know how this works.
Yes, and so that's exactly the topic today. And yeah, so we are going to discuss the method for this Discover audit. So usually at Oncrawl, we always have a data-driven approach. So the idea is to get data from Google Discover, so using the Search Console, and get your technical SEO data as well from your SEO crawler. And we will try to verify correlation, answer questions that we will see during the audit part of this presentation. And then the second phase is to, with this data, put your pages into groups, so making segmentations so that you can compare the metrics for each group, like pages behind a paywall versus pages not behind a paywall, so free content versus premium content, and things like this. And this way you can verify and answer your questions. Yeah, exactly what I was saying. So
then when we analyze the data, I get lots of questions from editors, like what performs in Google Discover and how do my articles perform in Google Discover. And with this overview that we're doing with the audit and the question, we can now finally answer all these questions and give editors hints on what they can do to perform better in Discover.
Yeah, so you really have an ongoing process with your editors, and you can crawl after crawl test and different things, and yeah, different segmentation. So let's go through the setup phase. So how to gather Google Discover data? We already said it, Search Console. So you also have analytics tools. So why would you choose Google Search Console instead, Viviane? Why do you trust this source a bit more?
Because so usually with Google Analytics or also Adobe Analytics, if you visit a website and you say, hey, I don't want to be tracked, Adobe and Google cannot track you. Therefore, you only get like 70% of visitors to actually like know how many visitors are on the page, and you can only analyze them. However, we believe that with Google Search Console, Google gives us all the data on like how often I am found on Google Search and Google Discover, and therefore the data source is more reliable.
Yeah, and plus there is also this question about the tracking from the referrer, which is not always sometimes empty, so you don't know the visitor is coming from Google Discover when they are using the Google Discover on iOS, for example. So yeah, you have lots of
yeah. Yeah.
So, and then about the data available in Google Discover, it's a bit different from what we know in SEO.
It is. So usually you have on your normal Google Search Console report, you can see clicks, impressions, CTR, also ranking positions for the normal Google search, which you don't have in the Discover report. So we do not know if we are on position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Discover feed of a person. We have no positions and no rankings. We do not know which is the headline that was shown in Discover. Is it the OG title or the meta title or the H1, H2, like whatever is showing up in Discover. Also, when we change it on a website, we don't know how quickly Discover picks it up. So it might have been the old one that was displayed and not the changed one. So we actually can't really say which is the title that worked best. And we don't know much about the indexation, like is this article indexed in Discover or not? However, yeah,
we don't know if there is even a notion of indexed in. We talk about featured in Google Discover, but we can only guess using impressions. So the article has been shown in Google Discover feed for someone, so you have some impressions, so you know it's in there. But I mean, there is no such metrics as the URL inspector tool for SEO. So yeah. Plus, there is no notion of keywords, of course, because it's a feed where people don't search, right?
Exactly. You don't have to put in a keyword to get Google Discover. Like the second you put in a keyword, you land in search, and it's not Discover anymore, actually. However, we do have some data, which is great. Google gives us the impressions, how often is it shown, how many times it has been clicked, CTR, so we know if it has been clicked a lot of times, which URL of the page, if it has more or it has been changed, has gotten how much Discover traffic, and we do have a period of time, so we actually know on which day it worked in Discover. However, we do not know, like, was it the first half of the day? Was it after I changed something? So we do not have hours, we only have dates.
Yes, which is already great data to do the audit. So then there is the period of time that you want to use. So in Oncrawl, what we do is that we aggregate the data by URL. So you won't have the details day by day, but you will have it for a certain period of time. So what do you recommend with your experience, Viviane?
Well, since we do have a lot of articles in Google Discover every single day, it's, I think, a couple of hundred, on a good day, more than 1,000. So we do have a lot of data, so it makes sense to only look at the most recent 15 days to compare it with the crawl, the most recent crawl, to see like what's different between the articles that are in Discover and those who aren't. Plus, if we would take older data, like, for example, if I would look at the last year, I could not account for Google updates. So if how Discover works has changed with the last update, I would get wrong information if I take my data from the last year. So it's very important to only look at my latest content and about the last 15 days. However, I do understand that some websites do not have that much traffic, like they have maybe one or two Discover hits or article that land in Discover and make a lot of traffic per month. So if you only look at the past 15 days, you don't really get a lot of data.
Yeah, so not enough data to actually make a comparison and get insights from it. So yeah.
We would have to look at a bigger time frame, like all the articles that have been discovered so far of all time.
And you will see that's the case for our blog at Oncrawl. So you'll see that the amount of pages is ridiculous. Moving to the next slide. So yeah, Search Console limitations. So a quick hack. So you might know that you're limited to 1,000 lines if you export from Google Search Console UI. So yeah, you can use the API or Looker Studio to bypass this limitation. And at SMX, somebody in the audience reminded us that there is also the BigQuery export that is great and that will send us even more data, right?
Yes.
Haven't used it yet, but could be a great way as well. So how to set up Oncrawl now? So let's get into the topic and more hands-on. So I will go through 3 steps: extract and format the data from Google Search Console for Oncrawl, set up the crawl configuration, and then get the dashboard so you can work on it and show you how you can use it. So it's time for the demo. I will share my screen. Okay. So we have a help article that is already published that has everything written down. So you don't have to remember it and take notes now. It's mentioning also the limits and how to do it. Especially what's important is the name of the columns. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the dashboard I've built. And then how to use it. So first step, Search Console. If you don't have many articles like Oncrawl, you can simply go to the Discover tab. You see, I selected 16 months, only 300 clicks. And then you click there. What I do, I export it to a Google Sheet. So I don't mind sharing this data. Anyway, we're not targeting Google Discover, obviously. Maybe one day. So then what you need to do is change the column names. So here, the first one needs to be URL, and then discover hyphen clicks, discover hyphen impressions, discover hyphen CTR. Convert this to numbers, otherwise you won't be able to exploit the data. So format numbers. Okay, here you make sure also those are numbers. Okay, once you're at this stage, you can simply download the data as a CSV, and then you open, you zip the file, and you go to Oncrawl on your project page, and here to data source, you can go to data ingestion and upload your file. So I already have one here, and you need to check that all the columns that you added are actually in doubles, so meaning numbers. If it says string, you won't be able to use the data. That's really important. The next step is to create, to launch the crawl. So I created a profile for Google Discover. And at the end, you go to data ingestion and you select your file here, the one that has the data. And then you're ready to launch the crawl. Some extra steps you can do is work on custom extractions, depending on the questions you want to answer. For example, if you want to check whether the article is signed or not signed, you might need to do an extract to find out if there is an author signing the article or not. So we'll discuss this during the audit phase, but this needs to be set up before launching the crawl. Things like publishing date, the breadcrumb values might be interesting, the tags, yeah, many ideas, but probably we'll have more suggestions during the audit. Then you're ready to launch the crawl. And the last step, once the crawl is ready, so you have your Discover crawl with your data, you can go to the dashboards, and we have in the templates a Google Discover dashboard ready to download. So you select your Discover crawl, and it should be there. And there is a link to the help article. You simply click there to import the dashboard, and you're set up. It's almost done now. Now you can start the audit, but you will also have to create segmentations to test and answer different questions. So first one you're going to use is your page type one, of course, probably one also with all your categories. But for example, you might want to test pages that have an author or not. So here is by author, but yeah, you might need to create segmentation. Let's create one so you have the example. So to be really precise on the process, so we'll create one group with pages that have no author. So we create a group without author. Select your field author, and here you say has no value. And then you create the other group. Select the field, and this time you say has any value. Okay, let's use that field. Okay, so you have your two groups, and now you're ready to compare the data on your dashboard. We'll go through this a bit more in detail during the audit phase, but this was just to show you the example on how to get the charts. Okay, so here you see that pages featured in Discover with an author. We have more actually pages featured with an author and more traffic as well. So Yeah, but this is fake data anyway. Huh? It's not a real file. I told you we don't make traffic on Google Discover. Another thing I wanted to show you is if you want to export the data through Looker Studio, so you will have to create a report, select the source search console, and then select your domain, URL impressions, and then select Discover. Once you did this, you can build your table with the 4 columns, URL, clicks, impressions, and CTR. And then you will be able to export it directly from Looker Studio. I guess this is what you're doing, Vivian, right?
Actually, we do have a Looker Studio report set up, so it's pretty easy to just get it from there. So yeah.
So just to show, let's select the URLs.
The nice thing, right, with Looker Studio, you set it up once and then you can use it time and time again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's pretty easy to use. You just add your metrics here. Here as a dimension, you will use the landing pages, and you will be able then to select the period to in the filters. Or wait, sorry, just here the data range. Just select the period you want, and then export it as a CSV straight from the. It should be there, yeah, export. Okay, so that was it for the demo. Let's go back to the deck.
Awesome. I'm fascinated time and time again. I'm like, we've done this a couple of times, but every time again, I learn something new.
Happy that this will help. And yeah. So
now that we looked at
just to about the concept, so we will go through a selection of questions from Vivienne that she had from her editors, and see how we can answer them.
Exactly. So we saw some kind of data extractions, for example, like does a page with an author works better like a page without an author? And another thing that I get asked quite frequently, are there even paywalled articles featured in Google Discover? Like, do they have a chance to be found via Discover? So are they?
Yes. So first we can see on this chart that they actually are. So what we did here is create a segmentation with 2 groups, page behind a paywall, or with a paywall or without a paywall. And we made sure that we were only looking at article pages. And then we focused on one chart, the ones with the average clicks. And this way we can compare the, and so were you actually surprised?
That there's so many more average clicks from articles in Discover with a paywall than without a paywall, definitely. It's very impressive. Not only do they exist in Discover, but also they generate clicks. That's awesome.
So, and how well
how well are they performing? Sorry.
So here we are comparing not only the average value, but also checking the size of the group, because that's interesting as well. So you don't have so many pages, so many premium content like pages behind the paywall, as we can see in the, at least in this scroll. But it looks like it's performing well given the size of the group, right?
Yeah. So we publish around 30% of our articles daily behind a paywall. So that reflects it actually very well, I think. And it's good to know that they're actually performing well.
And here we have the average clicks. So we already see, so yeah, they're performing very well. So what do you tell to your editors in this case?
So now next time an editor asks me as so, you know, not only can I now answer the question if paywalled articles are in there, I would also say like we are doing a lot of things right when we write paywalled articles. So if those perform better in Discover, the result would be to tell the editors, write all headlines like you would write them for a teaser for a paywall content. So, you know, the way that's different is like usually with a free article, I can already tell a lot of what's in the article with the headline, but with paywall articles, we're always like, okay, try to teaser it, but not tell everyone everything, just what they're gonna read, but not like the actual thing that's gonna be, you know, make it a bit mysterious.
Yes.
So this way of like only teasering the content, I think is a great way to get clicks from Google Discover.
Great tip. Next question.
Can all types of pages be featured in Discover? Is it only articles or also videos?
Yes, so that's a question that we had a lot. So here we'll be sharing what I found from my experience with all the users, the different companies we work with at Oncrawl. So first, articles, of course, that's obvious. But we also saw video pages, and you have some as well on BILD. Product detail pages, so that's a bit less expected, I guess, as well as category listings and pagination. Some of them ended up in Google Discover for our clients. I think it was the case at BILD as well, only a small portion.
Especially interesting for e-commerce sites, isn't it? So they don't need a blog with articles and videos. Their usual product and category pages can also be featured in Discover.
Yes. But yeah, they will never reach the same level of traffic with it, but it's interesting to check and to follow this. And same for the job boards. We work with some job boards, and it was actually surprising to see that from time to time, they had job detail pages ending up in Google Discover, showing up there, making impressions and clicks.
I think that's the interesting part. Like job detail pages, I would really not have guessed can rank in Discover, but they do.
Probably like the job title was written in a way that was really catchy or something like this. And probably more like maybe you have some in the audience some funny examples to share, like contact pages and things like this.
Did you know that the dog from the meme recently died?
No, that's the sad news.
Yeah, so sad to hear. But we will always have the meme.
Yeah, true. So next question.
Does title length impact Discover? So do I need to write a particularly long or short title for Discover? What do I have to change? How do I write the perfect, maybe even Discover title from a length perspective?
Yeah, so how to answer these questions? First, we looked at the lengths. So Oncrawl is counting the characters on each title. I built some ranges. The way that it's splitting the groups into sizes that are actually comparable. Here we can all agree that it doesn't really show anything except for a bit more traffic coming from pages with title from 85 characters to 86 to 95. So really, really weird.
What surprised me the most in this chart was, so usually the editors are told not to write SEO titles that are longer than 70 characters. But we see like ranges from 70 upwards, like there's a lot of articles in there. So that was the most surprising thing for me.
And I'm sorry. And then if we have another look, here we're looking at the average clicks. So on the other one, it was the sum of clicks. So here it's average value for each group. We see that the smallest one, the shortest one, is performing better. So not really sure what to make from it. So yeah, I guess you wouldn't make nothing of it, right?
No, because like there's no congruent answer to it. You can't say like make shorter or longer headlines for Discover. We see everything in there. Sometimes the shorter fonts perform better, sometimes the longer ones. So the answer still stays the same. Like, I don't know, you just do your best headline, you stay under the 70 characters because, you know, every article can not only rank in Discover, but also probably on Google. So just stay under the suggested character limit, but it does not have an impact on Google Discover, I would say.
Yes, plus we also checked the CTR. We didn't show it here, but it wasn't showing anything. Like there was no variation in the CTR in average. So, yeah. And then next question is about the title as well. So bad style. Yeah. What do you mean by bad style?
So a lot of journalists think it's a bad style to have a question in the headline. So they ask me, like, is that also bad for SEO, or can I write a question in the SEO title? Or
yeah. So how to answer this? I regrouped. I created segmentation with the regex, checking whether there is a question mark. I also checked the exclamation mark in a third group. And then neutral would be without question mark and exclamation mark in the title.
But I could also do that in an extraction for like other things. Like if I want to know if when there's a pipe in the meta title, if that helps, or if there's any other signs or particular words, I could just do it the same way, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you can test anything you think makes sense. Since we have the data, you can create this in bulk, and it's automatically updated on the dashboard. So yeah, it shows that neutral titles look better, but it also shows that titles with questions are not so bad, right? They're performing.
Yeah, and we have probably like most average clicks on the neutral ones because there's just the most of them.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and here we are comparing the size. Like you said, most of them are neutral. That's what we can see when looking at the size of the group. But still, it's not bad. So,
well, I mean, yeah, especially for the fact that there's like not many pages with question marks, they do make an interesting amount of clicks actually. So it seems to work actually pretty well. There's no reason not to do it.
Yes. And
sorry for my camera switching on and off all the whole time. I don't know what the problem is with this Mac.
Sorry?
I think my camera is switching on and off the whole time. So
okay, no, it's fine. Yeah. Anyway, so I hear you. The sound is great. So yeah, let's continue. Next question, though, the Google Discover guidelines.
They're true. Google says, so now, yeah, we said it's a black box, but there are a couple of things where Google says if you want to rank in Discover, your picture needs to be a certain width, or like this is something you can implement to make sure your articles can actually show up in Google Discover. So just because Google says it, is it really true?
So first thing we can check, the max image preview set to large in the meta robots. So probably most of the editors apply this, and we can see, so I created two groups, checking the meta robots, the ones without and the ones with. So you don't have many errors, only a few.
It means we have a great technical setup, I guess. Kudos to our tech friends at the BILD Tech SEO department.
And then the image width of the first image. So I was checking the clicks by image width for the first one. So this is something I did using a scrapping rule, extracting the actual size in the width of the first image on each article. And none of them are at 1,200 pixels, right?
But still, they rank in Discover. Just
yes.
Because Google says your images must have a width of at least 1,200 pixels, doesn't mean they cannot show up in Discover if they have less or if they have a different size. It still works.
Yes, true. And the last one was really interesting about non-clickbait. So you shouldn't write a title in a clickbait fashion.
Yes. So it says it exactly in the Google guidelines for Discover. Use page titles that capture the essence of the content, but in a non-clickbait fashion. So I brought some headlines from BILD. As you can see, for those of you who are not fluent in German, all of these are not very clickbaity. They're pretty much matter-of-factly, so we didn't have a lot to work with. I say that because a lot of people think that BILD does a lot of clickbait, and we actually don't.
Yes, but it's not the case. And actually, the data says so as well. So I asked Vivienne an easy way to catch clickbait titles, and she told me it should contain Deezer or Deezer, which would be in English this or those, or like titles starting with this. I don't know
As
this word.
you're probably aware, there's different ways of forming a clickbait title. So just a title having going like, these are 5 things about that you need to know when you travel to France. You would have never guessed number 3. So, you know, that's just one way of forming a clickbait title.
Exactly.
So also in German, if you say like, and this is, you know, what you would have never guessed, it will not cover everything, but that's the great thing about it. Like you have 7 or 8 different forms of clickbait titles, and you can, by segmentation, look for all of them. But we just looked for this one as a model.
Yeah. So the conclusion now with those guidelines, we saw that actually with some of them you are not respecting them, and you're still performing in Google Discover. But I guess
still, I would tell my tech SEO to stick to the Google Discover guidelines. Like if I set up a whole new website and I have a chance, let's just do this right. You know, we never know if Google might change anything technically in the background, and we'll be sticking to those guidelines in the future. So just set it up correctly from the beginning, and you will not have a problem in the future.
Yes. And yeah, sorry for the audience, like all our small GIFs are not working, so I'm a bit sad, but because we selected them. But yeah. Next question.
Does authorship influence Discover results?
Yeah, so that's the one example I did during the demo. So let's look at BILD's data. So 2 groups, with an author, without. Here it seems obvious that it's performing better when the article is signed.
I think that's amazing because a lot of authors just don't write their names under it. Sometimes they just forget. So now I have the data to tell them, hey, you should always write your author name under your article, because that way you have higher chances of ranking in Discover.
Yeah, and here is another view. So in terms of volume, so it's
I think
even
it's impressive to see that we actually have more pages without an author, but still in Discover, it's more pages with an author. It's impressive.
So what do you tell your editors?
Write your name. Yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
Does search impact Discover? Like, is every article in search also in Discover? Is every article in Discover also in search? Can an article show up in both or none?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting one. Like, what's the link between search and Discover? So of course, most of your pages will be only in search, but we see that some pages in Discover are only in Discover. Only a few.
I honestly did not think that the blue part would be that big. I thought most pages are in search and Discover, but apparently most pages are only in search and only a small portion is showing up in search and Discover.
Yes. Maybe there is a bias in the way we actually do the audit. Like, we need to make sure that if you select 15 days of data from Google Discover, you do as well for the search data.
So I only crawl the pages that have been published within the last 15 days.
Or make sure that you're using 15 days for the Google Search Console connector as well. So this is also possible. But I think I did so when I launched the crawl for this data. But yeah, also this is something that comes to my mind. But yeah, and
what I love the most, I mean, we've seen this from articles from Lily Ray before. There are articles that cannot be found in search, but they are in Discover. So even if your articles makes no clicks in Google search, it can still be a huge hit on Google Discover. I think that's very hopeful. I like that graph.
Yeah. And if we want to go further in the analysis, it would be interesting to check whether the page is at least indexed in Google. Because if it's not in the index, I wouldn't believe that Google would put it in Google Discover. He needs to find the page first anyway. So yeah. But it's just here we are showing pages that when we say pages only in search or in search in Discover, we are talking about pages getting impressions, just to tell you more about this chart. Another view here is the average position in the search for all the keywords that those pages are ranking on. And it's funny to see that pages that are active in Google Discover, so they're featured in Google Discover, we're only looking at pages that are in Discover. When we look at the actual average position they have in the search, in search results, almost all of them are in page 1.
Wow.
So that's interesting. So probably pages ranking very well might have more chance to be featured in Discover. But in the end, hard to tell if there is a link or not, right?
So yeah, you can be in Discover without ranking in Google, but most of articles that are in the Google search will not be in Discover. However, there's there's a good chance if you are with your article on page 1 in Google that it will show up in Discover as well.
Yes, so also this slides to say that don't forget to work on your SEO basics as well when you want to perform in Google Discover. Might be obvious, but yeah. Next question, the size of the content.
Yeah, does content size actually impact the performance on Google Discover?
So here we're looking at the word count. So how many words on the page. We created the segmentation based on the different ranges. And here we are comparing the clicks versus the page that are making clicks. So how many are active. And
yeah, we do have a lot of articles with more than 500 words.
Yeah, true. But still they are making traffic and they are actually getting clicks. Yeah.
Yeah, and the relations are the same. Like, you know, we have the most articles that are over 500, and that's also the ones that make the most clicks. So I guess content size doesn't really matter. If you do a lot of small articles, they all get clicks. If you do a lot of long articles, they can get clicks via Discover. So it is actually, as Google says it is, size, like the number of words on a page does not matter for...
I was going to say this, like in SEO, it doesn't matter as well. Like it seems it doesn't matter anymore. Next question, the categories.
Yeah, the categories. Like, I think this is the most important part because every publisher, or even if I have a blog, I categorize. So I need to know if I publish most articles about cars, do I get the most traffic from that? And oh gosh, how I love this graph. So we do publish a lot in sports, but still do not make the most of our Discover traffic in sports. So there's a lot of publishing that we do that does not result in traffic. However, a lot of people ask me from our regional editors and reporters, do regional articles even show up in Discover? And as we can see, although we do not make a lot, they perform very, very well. Or we do a lot, but they... Oh, I think I read this wrongly. So we do a lot of regional content and it doesn't work that well, and we don't do this much in sports, but it does work very well in Discover.
Yes, so I'm curious to see how you leverage this data, this graph, because you seem to like it a lot.
We do not do a lot of videos, but they make a lot of traffic via Google Discover, so very efficient, the video department. And so BILD sports and video content are performing very well on Google Discover. So I would focus my efforts on those who are not performing well. So I would learn from sports and from your video, what are they doing well? And I would put my efforts into the other ones, because that's where we have the highest potential of getting better and getting more traffic.
Yes. You could build the same chart using the tags or the topics if you're able to extract this from your pages. This would be another way also of splitting the data.
Yeah, I have a little tip. If you are setting up a new blog, or you have a blog, I know that Google does not use the meta keywords anymore, but you can use the meta keywords and extract them for like category purposes, and then actually filter a segment by those keywords.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, that was the last question. So going further, a couple of things we didn't discuss today, and that might be interesting. So what else can we do with this Google Discover audit?
So I think it helps for troubleshooting, like to find if there's anything broken. Other things I would do from the crawl and the Oncrawl data, maybe not just for Discover, is also always look at the impact of Google updates. Because Google sometimes says if the search update impacts Discover as well or not, but it doesn't always say it. So we can look at our search data and our Discover data and our general pages and see if there's any correlation there. And I think it helps a lot. We implement the findings that we have into our trainings. So we have a regular SEO training every single month, and it's a bit different every single month because we always adapt it and put in the new findings. Plus our editorial workflows get better if we gather with the gathered insights. So like I said, I can decide with my SEO team if we put a lot of effort into sports or into maybe entertainment. And with this data, I can decide, okay, let's optimize the workflows for entertainment because that's where we will have the most impact.
Yes. Yeah, and last point about the optimization conversion. You can use things like the bounce rate as well, session engagements and things like this to also see that this traffic from Google Discover becomes money for you. So if you're not an editor, if you're more like an e-commerce, it could be conversions, or if you're trying to catch leads using your media to catch leads. Yeah, make sure that those pages are integrated in your funnel. Thank you, Vivian, for your time. It was great to redo this.
Absolutely.
We spent so much time on the preparation, and it was so fast when we did it live. So happy that we recorded it today.
It was an absolute pleasure.
And we'll move on to the questions with a live session.